Hey everybody, John Smale here. I'm here again today on my channel. Get me back at the screen there. Oh my God, he disappeared. Back again talking about SmalesPace years and folk music in Canada. Come back, where are you? And it gives me a lot of pleasure today to talk about an old friend and a dear friend of mine, Paul Mills, who I want to recognize both as a friend and as a great Canadian. In fact, he is a member of the Order of Canada. Paul and I first met back in about 1968 at University of Western Ontario. Paul was in engineering and I was in my undergraduate. And Paul was a performer at the Hub Coffee House, which was an on-campus place, and I loved it because there were so many great local musicians. Paul was the dazzling guitar player and singer, of course, but his guitar playing really stood out as being quite spectacular and really impressed me. Paul is married to Bev, and Bev is like this wonderful woman and wife and mother of their two children, Trevor and Sarah. Paul and Bev were the first computer matched dates in Canada. They were part of a university experiment, and the experiment worked. No Frankensteinian outcome there. Bev is always so supportive of Paul, and she's always a joy to be around. I love her. Paul did get his engineering degree at Western and went on to work for a chemical company in Toronto, and he hated it, absolutely hated it. And so he pursued his first love, which was music, and applied for a producer's job at CBC, and voila, he won the job. Thank God for that, because he's had a tremendous influence on the singer-songwriter and folk movement or history or archiving in Canada. Everything was very creative, and he was a great advocate for singer-songwriters and got them really good recording time at the CBC studios in Toronto, the old studios on Yonge Street up at Marlborough, I believe the street was, yeah. And Paul went on to produce a series with Bill Garrett and other CBC production people with Sylvia Tyson as the host of the show. And they did cross Canada. It was a radio show on CBC, it wasn't TV. And they went across Canada and taped concerts, interviewed artists, did all kinds of great exposés and were, I think, quintessentially the great Canadian show, which led to other shows of the nature. And not the Vinyl Cafe so much, but Paul's fingerprint and signature was on the quality of the music. It was called Touch the Earth. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. Paul was also involved in a lot of folk festivals across Canada, and especially close with the Winnipeg Folk Festival, of course, and his friend Mitch Podolak, our friend too. And we started a folk festival in London, Ontario called Home County Folk Festival. And Paul was a big backer of talking it to the music scene because he knew so many darn musicians. When Paul played at folk festivals, he had a sort of nom de plume or a stage name, Curly Boy Stubbs. And I don't know if it was something contractual because of CBC that he couldn't use his real name, but it was always great, and so a lot of people know him as Curly Boy. Paul started his own record company in partnerships and whatever. I think Bill Garrett with Borealis Records, and they went on to produce many albums with many artists. And then Paul, with his recording studio called The Millstream, has recorded literally hundreds of albums. I think you could look up Paul Mills' biography and his discography of what he's produced. Most importantly, in Paul's life was he was the producer for the great Stan Rogers, the quintessential Canadian singer-songwriter who died awfully young as far as we're all concerned. He was coming back from a concert tour in Texas, and he was on an airplane that had an onboard fire, and Stan died in that incident, a very tragic incident. Paul and Stan were best of friends. They played together. On the screen here you can see there's Paul on accompanying guitar, and there's Big Stan singing, and in the middle picture, of course, is Paul and Bev celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. I can't stress enough about how dedicated Paul was to Stan, and to this day has produced yearly Stan Rogers tribute concerts at places like Hughes Room and variously across Canada. Paul is still active in music, in live music. In fact, he goes out on the road and does home concert tours with his son Trevor, and most recently with our very, very good friend Dave Bradstreet. And it's nice that two old buddies like that are teaming up after knowing each other for 50 years and going out on the road and perpetuating. That's my story for the day. This is a tribute to Paul Mills as a friend, as a musician, as a producer, and as a great Canadian in the music business, especially promoting the world of great Canadian singer-songwriters. Thanks, and let's get together soon. Another great episode coming up. Please subscribe if you enjoy these kind of talks, and bon voyage, old folkies. Bye-bye.